Joanna, sweetie, when are you going to find yourself a good man? I nearly choked on my coffee, caught off guard by Mom's sudden question. We were sitting in her cozy kitchen, sunlight streaming through the lace curtains she'd hung years ago. It was our weekly Sunday brunch tradition we'd kept since Dad passed away 5 years ago. Mom, please. Please, I sighed, setting down my mug. We've been through this. I'm happy with my life as it is. She reached across the table, patting my hand. I know, honey, but I worry about you. You work so hard, always taking care of everyone else. Don't you want someone to take care of you? I forced a smile, trying to hide my frustration. I can take care of myself just fine, Mom. Besides, I have you. That's sweet, dear, but I won't be around forever. Her words sent a chill down my spine. I just want to know you'll be settled before, well, you know. Mom, don't talk like that, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. You're healthy as a horse. You'll outlive us all. She chuckled, but there was a sadness in her eyes that made my heart ache. Oh, Joanna, always the optimist. But life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it? I couldn't argue with that. Life had certainly thrown us some curveballs over the years. Still, I wasn't about to let her dwell on morbid thoughts. Tell you what, I said, pulling out my phone. If it'll make you feel better, I'll sign up for one of those dating apps right now. Her face lit up like a Christmas tree. Oh, would you? That would be wonderful. I rolled my eyes, but couldn't help smiling at her enthusiasm. All right, but don't get your hopes up. These things are usually full of creeps and weirdos. As I started filling out my profile, Mom peered over my shoulder. Oh, put that you like cooking and gardening. Men love a woman who can keep a nice home. Mom, I groaned. It's not 1950. I'm not looking for a husband to cook and clean for. She waved her hand dismissively. Times may change, but a man's stomach is still the way to his heart. Trust me on this. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from work. Sorry, Mom, I've got to run. Emergency at the office. She frowned, concern etched on her face. On a Sunday? Joanna, you work too hard. This is exactly why you need someone in your life. I kissed her cheek, grabbing my purse. I promise I'll finish setting up that dating profile later. Love you, Mom. As I hurried out to my car, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling her words had stirred up. Was she right? Was I missing out on something by focusing so much on my career and taking care of her? I shook my head, pushing the thoughts aside as I started the engine. There was no time for self-doubt now. I had a crisis to manage at work. Little did I know, as I pulled out of Mom's driveway, that this conversation would be the catalyst for a series of events that would change my life forever. The simple act of creating that dating profile would set in motion a chain reaction of love, betrayal, and ultimately, redemption. But for now, all I could think about was getting to the office and putting out whatever fire had erupted on my day off. As I merged onto the highway, my phone buzzed again. Glancing at the screen, I saw a notification from the dating app. You have a new match! I couldn't help but laugh. Mom would be thrilled. Maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be such a bad idea after all. If only I had known then what I know now. But isn't that always the way? We make choices, thinking we're in control, never realizing how those small decisions can snowball into life-altering moments. As I pulled into the office parking lot, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever chaos awaited me inside. Little did I know, the real chaos was yet to come, and it would start with a simple swipe right on a dating app. I never expected a simple swipe right to change my life so dramatically. But there I was, 6 months after that fateful Sunday brunch with Mom, sitting across from Ethan in a cozy Italian restaurant, my heart fluttering like a teenager's. So tell me more about your work in healthcare, I said, twirling pasta around my fork. Ethan's eyes lit up. It's fascinating, really. We're developing new systems to streamline patient care. I'm actually up for a big promotion next month. I couldn't help but be impressed. Here was a man with ambition, drive, and a genuine passion for helping others. It was refreshing after the string of duds I'd encountered on the dating app. That's wonderful, I smiled. I'm sure you'll get it. He reached across the table, taking my hand. Thanks, Joanna. You know, I've never met anyone quite like you. Your dedication to your mother, your work ethic, it's inspiring. I felt a warmth spread through my chest. Was this what Mom had been talking about? The feeling of being truly seen and appreciated? As we left the restaurant, Ethan surprised me with a gentle kiss. "I'd like to see you again?" he said softly. "I'd like that too," I replied, my cheeks flushing. The next few months were a whirlwind. Ethan and I saw each other every chance we got. He was attentive, charming, and seemed to genuinely care about my life and my relationship with Mom. One evening, as we walked through the park near Mom's house, Ethan suddenly stopped and turned to face me. "Joanna," he said, his voice serious, "I know this might seem fast, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life." He dropped to one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. "Will you marry me?" I gasped, tears springing to my eyes. "Ethan, Yes! Yes, of course!" As he slipped the ring on my finger, I couldn't help but think of Mom. She was going to be over the moon, and she was. When we told her the news, she practically danced around the kitchen. "Oh, Joanna, I'm so happy for you, sweetheart. Ethan, welcome to the family." Ethan hugged her warmly. "Thank you, Emily. I promise to take good care of your daughter." Mom's eyes misted over. "I know you will. You're a good man, Ethan." The wedding planning flew by in a blur of cake tastings, dress fittings, and venue tours. Before I knew it, I was standing at the altar saying, "I do," to the man of my dreams. As we danced at the reception, I caught sight of Mom watching us, a proud smile on her face. I felt a pang of sadness, knowing I'd be moving out of her house and starting my new life with Ethan. "Don't worry," Ethan whispered, as if reading my thoughts. "We'll visit your mom all the time. She's family now, too." I hugged him tighter, grateful for his understanding. The next morning, as we packed up my things from Mom's house, I couldn't shake a nagging feeling of unease. Was I really ready for this big change? Mom must have sensed my hesitation. She pulled me aside while Ethan was loading the car. "Joanna, sweetie, are you okay?" I forced a smile. "Of course, Mom. Just a little overwhelmed, I guess." She cupped my face in her hands. "Marriage isn't always easy, honey. There will be ups and downs, but if you love each other and work at it, you'll be just fine." I nodded, trying to push down the doubt creeping into my mind. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? A loving husband, a new life, a chance at happiness. As we drove away from Mom's house, Ethan reached over and squeezed my hand. "Ready for our new adventure?" I smiled back at him, pushing my worries aside. Ready as I'll ever be. Little did I know, the real adventure and the real challenges were just beginning. As we pulled onto the highway towards our new home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was leaving more than just my old life behind. I was stepping into an unknown future, one that would test me in ways I never imagined. The honeymoon phase of our marriage faded faster than I ever imagined. 6 months in, and I found myself staring at a sink full of dirty dishes, wondering where it all went wrong. "Ethan," I called out, my voice echoing through our spacious new home. "Could you give me a hand with these dishes?" His reply came from the living room, barely audible over the sound of the TV. "Sorry, honey. I've got a big presentation tomorrow. Can't you handle it?" I bit back a sigh, reminding myself of his recent promotion. He was under a lot of pressure, after all. "Sure," I replied, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. "No problem." As I scrubbed at a particularly stubborn pot, I couldn't help but think of Mom. She'd always said marriage was about teamwork, but lately it felt like I was playing for both sides. The next morning, I woke to find Ethan already gone. A hastily scribbled note on the kitchen counter read, "Early meeting. Don't wait up tonight." I frowned, realizing this was the 3rd time this week he'd be working late. Pushing down my disappointment, I headed to work, determined to stay positive. At the office, my coworker Charlie greeted me with a warm smile. "Morning, Joanna. How's married life treating you?" I plastered on a smile. "Oh, you know, busy. Ethan's got a lot on his plate with the new position." Charlie's brow furrowed slightly. "And how about you? Are you doing okay?" His concern caught me off guard. When was the last time someone had asked me that? "I'm fine," I said, perhaps a bit too quickly, just adjusting to the new routine. As the day wore on, I found myself thinking about Charlie's question. Was I okay? The nagging doubt I'd felt on my wedding day seemed to be growing, despite my best efforts to ignore it. That evening, I decided to surprise Ethan at his office. Maybe a nice dinner out would help us reconnect. As I approached his building, I saw him exiting with a group of colleagues, laughing and relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in weeks. "Ethan," I called out, waving. His head snapped up, surprise and something else. Was it annoyance? Flashing across his face. Joanna? What are you doing here? I faltered, suddenly feeling foolish. I thought maybe we could grab dinner. He glanced at his watch, then back at his colleagues. Actually, we were just heading out to discuss the presentation. Rain check? Before I could respond, he was gone, swallowed up by the crowd of suits and briefcases. I stood there, feeling invisible and small. At home, I called Mom, desperate for her reassuring voice. Hi, sweetie, she answered on the first ring. How are you? The dam broke. Through tears, I poured out my frustrations, the loneliness, the uneven distribution of household chores, the growing distance between Ethan and me. Mom listened patiently, then said, Oh, Joanna, marriage takes work, remember? Have you talked to Ethan about how you're feeling? I wiped my eyes, feeling a mix of shame and resolve. No, not really. I didn't want to add to his stress. Honey, Mom's voice was gentle but firm, your feelings matter too. You need to communicate with each other. After hanging up, I sat at the kitchen table, waiting for Ethan. It was well past midnight when I heard his key in the lock. Ethan, I started as he stumbled in, the smell of alcohol clinging to him. We need to talk. He waved a dismissive hand. Not now, Joanna. I'm beat. No, I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. Now, this can't wait. Ethan's eyes narrowed, a flash of something unfamiliar, almost cruel, crossing his face. What's your problem? I'm working my ass off to provide for us, and this is the thanks I get? His words hit me like a physical blow. As he stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door behind him, I sat frozen, the realization dawning on me like a cold, harsh light. This wasn't just a rough patch. This was the unraveling of everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about Ethan, about the life we were supposed to be building together. As the first rays of dawn crept through the window, I made a silent vow to myself. Things had to change. I just didn't know then how drastic that change would need to be. The shrill ring of my phone pierced the pre-dawn silence. My heart raced as I fumbled for it, instantly awake. Late-night calls never brought good news. Joanna? My neighbor's voice trembled. It's your mother. The ambulance just left. You need to get to the hospital now. The world tilted on its axis. I leapt out of bed, my mind a whirlwind of panic and disbelief. Ethan, I called out, but the other side of the bed was empty. Another late night at the office, no doubt. I drove to the hospital in a daze, praying to every deity I could think of. This couldn't be happening. Not Mom. Not now. The emergency room was a blur of harsh lights and antiseptic smells. A doctor approached, his face grave. Mrs. Walker? I'm so sorry. We did everything we could, but your mother suffered a massive stroke. She didn't make it. The words hit me like a physical blow. I crumpled to the floor, sobs racking my body. Mom, my rock, my constant, was gone. Just like that. Hours passed in a haze of paperwork and phone calls. As morning light crept through the hospital windows, I realized Ethan still hadn't returned my frantic messages. With shaking hands, I dialed his number again. What is it, Joanna? His irritated voice cut through my grief. I'm in the middle of something important. Ethan, I choked out. Mom's gone. She had a stroke. I need you. There was a long pause. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Listen, I've got this huge presentation today. I can't get away. You understand, right? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Ethan, my mother just died. I need my husband. And I need this promotion, he snapped. We'll talk later. The line went dead. Numbness washed over me. In my darkest hour, when I needed him most, Ethan had abandoned me. The realization was like a knife to my heart. Charlie from work arrived at the hospital an hour later, concern etched on his face. Joanna, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do? His kindness broke through my shock. I collapsed into his arms, letting out the tears I'd been holding back. Charlie held me, murmuring words of comfort, being the support I so desperately needed. The next few days passed in a blur of funeral arrangements and well-wishers. Ethan made a brief appearance at the wake, all polished smiles and hollow condolences, before rushing off again. I was too numb to even feel angry anymore. As I stood at Mom's graveside, watching her casket being lowered into the ground, a strange calm settled over me. I remembered her words from so long ago. Life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it? Oh, Mom, if only you knew. Back at home, I found Ethan packing a suitcase. Business trip, he said curtly. I'll be gone for a week. Something inside me snapped. A week, Ethan, we need to talk about what happened. About us. He sighed, exasperated. What's there to talk about? Your mother died. It's sad. Life goes on. I have responsibilities, Joanna. I can't put my career on hold for your grief." His callousness stunned me into silence. As he brushed past me, heading for the door, he paused. "Oh, here," he said, fishing in his pocket. He pressed something small and cold into my palm. "Light a candle for your mom or something." I opened my hand to find a single nickel. The door slammed behind him before I could respond. Standing alone in our empty house, that pitiful nickel burning in my hand, I felt a shift deep within me. The fog of grief parted, replaced by a clarity I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't a marriage. It was a sham, a prison of my own making. Mom would be heartbroken to see me like this, wasting away in a loveless union with a man who couldn't even pretend to care about my pain. As I clutched that insulting nickel, I made a vow to myself and to Mom's memory. This ends now. I don't know how, but I'm going to find a way out. I'm going to reclaim my life, my dignity, and my future. Little did I know, the path to that future would be paved with shocking revelations and a thirst for justice I never knew I possessed. The day of Mom's funeral dawned gray and somber, a perfect reflection of my shattered heart. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my black dress, feeling like a hollow shell of the woman I once was. Ethan's absence loomed large, a gaping wound in my already fragile psyche. As I entered the church, a sea of sympathetic faces turned towards me. I plastered on a brave smile, accepting hugs and condolences with robotic grace. Then I saw him. Roger, Ethan's brother, making his way through the crowd. "Joanna," he said softly, enveloping me in a warm embrace. "I'm so sorry for your loss. Emily was an incredible woman." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you, Roger. I'm glad you could make it." He squeezed my hand. "Of course, I wouldn't miss it. I just wish." He trailed off, a strange expression crossing his face. "What is it?" I asked, suddenly alert. Roger hesitated, then pulled me aside. "Joanna, there's something you should know. Ethan, he's not at work today." My brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" He said he had an important presentation. "I ran into his boss at the coffee shop this morning," Roger explained, his voice low. "He mentioned that Ethan had taken bereavement leave for the week, said he was impressed by Ethan's dedication to family." The world tilted on its axis. That's not possible. Ethan told me he couldn't get away from work," he said. Roger's face was a mixture of anger and pity. "I'm sorry, Joanna. I thought you should know." As the funeral service began, my mind raced. Where was Ethan? Why had he lied? The questions swirled, threatening to drown out the pastor's words of comfort. After the service, as mourners filed past Mom's casket, I caught sight of a familiar face. Charlie, my coworker, stood at the back of the church, his eyes filled with concern. Our gazes locked, and in that moment, I felt a flicker of warmth in my cold, numb heart. Later at the wake, I found myself in Mom's kitchen, surrounded by well-meaning relatives and casseroles. The chatter faded to white noise as I struggled to process Roger's revelation. "Joanna?" Charlie's gentle voice cut through my thoughts. "Can I get you anything?" I looked up, meeting his kind eyes. "Actually, could you just sit with me for a moment?" He nodded, taking the seat beside me. We sat in companionable silence, a stark contrast to the constant tension I felt with Ethan. As the last of the mourners trickled out, I made a decision. I couldn't let this go. I needed answers. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed Ethan's number. It went straight to voicemail. I tried his office next. "Hello, Joanna," his secretary answered. "I'm so sorry about your mother. How are you holding up?" "I'm managing," I replied, my voice tight. "Is Ethan there? I really need to speak with him." There was a pause. "Ethan? No, he's out on bereavement leave this week. Didn't he tell you?" The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. "Right, of course. Thank you." I ended the call, my mind reeling. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture I didn't want to see. Charlie appeared at my side, concern etched on his face. "Joanna, what's wrong?" I looked up at him, feeling something shift inside me. The grief, the betrayal, the years of neglect, it all crystallized into a single, burning point of resolve. "Charlie," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I need your help. There's something I have to do." As I outlined my plan, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. This was it, the moment I'd start taking back control of my life. Whatever Ethan was hiding, wherever he was, I was going to find out. Mom's voice echoed in my head. "Life has a way of surprising us." Well, Mom, I thought grimly, it's time I did some surprising of my own. Little did I know, the surprises awaiting me would shake the very foundation of my world and set me on a path I never could have imagined. The next morning I woke with a steely determination. Roger had agreed to help me uncover the truth about Ethan, and we wasted no time. As a lawyer, Roger had connections that could prove invaluable. I've got a friend in the HR department at Ethan's company, Roger said as we sat in his office. She owes me a favor. Are you sure you want to do this, Joanna? I nodded, my jaw set. I need to know, Roger. All of it. Hours later, we sat surrounded by a mountain of documents. Financial reports, emails, meeting minutes, all painting a picture that made my stomach churn. Joanna, Roger's voice was grave. This goes beyond just lying about work. Look at these discrepancies in the financial reports. And these emails, Ethan's been manipulating data, covering up mistakes. This could be grounds for dismissal, maybe even legal action. My head spun. The Ethan I thought I knew was crumbling before my eyes, replaced by a stranger I didn't recognize. Just then my phone buzzed. A text from Charlie. Found something. Meet me at the cafe across from Ethan's office, ASAP. Go, Roger urged. I'll keep digging here. 20 minutes later I rushed into the cafe, spotting Charlie in a corner booth. His face was pale, his eyes wide. Charlie, what is it? I asked, sliding into the seat across from him. He pushed a manila envelope towards me. I followed Ethan, like you asked. Joanna, I'm so sorry, but... With trembling hands I opened the envelope. Inside were photos, Ethan entering a hotel, arm in arm with a woman I didn't recognize. The timestamp showed it was taken yesterday, during Mom's funeral. The world tilted on its axis. I felt like I was going to be sick. There's more, Charlie said softly. I overheard them talking. Ethan's been embezzling money from the company. He's planning to leave the country, Joanna. Soon. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, was a lie. My phone rang, startling us both. It was Roger. Joanna, you need to get back here now. I've found something big. The next few hours passed in a blur. Roger had uncovered a trail of fraudulent activities stretching back years. Ethan hadn't just been lying about work. He'd been systematically defrauding his company, manipulating data to cover his tracks. We need to report this, Roger said, his face grim. Joanna, I know he's my brother, but what he's done, it's criminal. I nodded, numb. Do it. As Roger made the calls, I sat in stunned silence. How had I been so blind? So naive? The weight of my mother's absence hit me anew. She would have seen through Ethan's facade in an instant. Just then, my phone lit up with a text from Ethan. Working late. Don't wait up. Something inside me snapped. No more lies. No more deception. I stood abruptly. I'm going home, I announced. I'm going to pack my things and leave. I can't be there when he comes back. Charlie and Roger exchanged worried glances. You shouldn't be alone, Charlie said. Let me come with you. As we drove to my house, no, Ethan's house, I felt a strange mix of grief and liberation. The life I thought I had was gone, shattered beyond repair. But in its place, I felt the stirrings of something new, something stronger. Walking into the house, I headed straight for the bedroom, Charlie close behind. As I pulled out a suitcase, my eyes fell on the framed photo of Ethan and me on our wedding day. With a sudden, fierce movement, I swept it off the dresser, watching it shatter on the floor. Joanna? Charlie said softly, placing a hand on my shoulder. I turned to face him, tears streaming down my cheeks. It's over, Charlie. All of it. I don't know what happens next, but I know I can't stay here another minute. As I zipped up my suitcase, I heard the front door open. Ethan's voice called out, Joanna? Are you home? My blood ran cold. This was it, the moment of truth, and I was ready for it. My heart pounded as Ethan's footsteps echoed through the house. Charlie squeezed my hand, a silent show of support. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. Joanna? Ethan called again, his voice closer now. What's going on? Whose car is that outside? I stepped out of the bedroom, Charlie closed behind me. Ethan's eyes widened as he took in the scene. My packed suitcase, Charlie's presents, the shattered wedding photo on the floor. What the hell is this? He demanded, his face flushing with anger. It's over, Ethan, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I know everything. The lies, the affair, the embezzlement, all of it. Ethan's face paled, then twisted into a sneer. You don't know anything, he spat. You're just a naive little girl playing detective. Am I? I pulled out my phone, showing him the photos Charlie had taken. How about these, or the financial records Roger uncovered? For a moment, Ethan looked genuinely shocked, then his expression hardened. So what, you think you can just walk away, after everything I've done for you, really? Done for me? You've done nothing but lie and cheat. You couldn't even be there for me when my mother died. Ethan's eyes darted to Charlie, then back to me. And what's this? You're leaving me for him? He took a menacing step forward. Charlie moved to stand between us. Back off, Ethan. It's over. Ethan's fist connected with Charlie's jaw before I could react. Charlie stumbled back and I screamed as Ethan lunged for me. But Charlie was quicker. He tackled Ethan to the ground, pinning him down. Joanna, call the police, he shouted. With shaking hands, I dialed 911. As I reported the situation, I watched Ethan struggle against Charlie's hold, cursing and threatening us both. The next hour passed in a blur. The police arrived, taking statements and photographing Charlie's bruised face. Ethan was led away in handcuffs, still shouting threats and accusations. As the chaos subsided, I sank onto the couch, exhausted. Charlie sat beside me, holding an ice pack to his jaw. Are you okay? He asked softly. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I can't believe it's really over, I whispered. Just then my phone buzzed. It was Roger. Joanna, I've got more bad news. Ethan's company just called. They're pressing charges for the embezzlement. It's bad. Really bad. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. When I opened them again, I saw Charlie watching me with concern. What do you need? He asked simply. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I need to leave, I said, standing up. Not just this house, but this whole life. I can't stay here, surrounded by all these memories and lies. Charlie nodded, understanding in his eyes. Where will you go? I thought of Mom, of all the dreams and plans we'd shared. There's a little town on the coast Mom always talked about retiring to. I think I'll start there. As I packed the last of my belongings, my eyes fell on the nickel Ethan had given me to light a candle for Mom. With a sudden, fierce movement, I snatched it up and shoved it in my pocket. Charlie helped me load my car, then hesitated. Joanna, I care about you. A lot, but I understand if you need space. I looked at him, really looked at him, for what felt like the first time. Come with me, I said impulsively. Just for a while. I could use a friend. As we drove away from the house that had once been my home, I felt a mix of terror and exhilaration. Everything I'd known was gone, shattered like that wedding photo on the bedroom floor. But as I glanced at Charlie, saw the open road ahead of us, I felt something else too. Hope. The nickel weighed heavy in my pocket, a reminder of all I'd lost, but also a promise of what was to come. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain. I was done being the naive, trusting Joanna. It was time to forge a new path on my own terms. As we crossed the city limits, I took a deep breath. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. 6 months after leaving Ethan, I stood on the beach of the small coastal town Mom had always dreamed of retiring to. The salty breeze whipped through my hair as I clutched the nickel that had become a symbol of my past. My phone buzzed, a text from Roger. It's over. Ethan took a plea deal. 10 years. You won't have to testify. Relief washed over me, followed quickly by a pang of sadness. Not for Ethan, but for the life I thought I'd have. I showed the message to Charlie, who stood beside me. How do you feel? He asked, his hand finding mine. Free, I replied, surprising myself with the truth of it. Just then my phone rang. It was Ethan, calling from jail. My hand trembled as I answered. Joanna, his voice was desperate. Please, you have to help me. Tell them it was all a misunderstanding. I did it for us, for our future. I closed my eyes, remembering the lies, the betrayal, the years of manipulation. No, Ethan, I said firmly. You did it for yourself, always for yourself. Goodbye. I ended the call, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. Charlie squeezed my hand, a silent show of support. Come on, he said softly. There's something I want to show you. We walked along the beach to a small animal shelter. Inside, a scruffy mutt with soulful eyes caught my attention. This is Chance, the shelter worker said. He's had a rough go of it, but he's got a lot of love to give. As I knelt to pet him, Chance licked my face, his tail wagging furiously. I felt something shift inside me, a spark of joy I hadn't felt since Mom died. I'll take him, I said, surprising myself. Later, as Charlie and I walked Chance along the shore, I spotted an old wishing well near the boardwalk. A memory flashed. Mom and me, years ago, tossing coins and making wishes. I pulled out the nickel, turning it over in my palm. You know, I said to Charlie, Mom always said that sometimes the best way to move forward is to let go of the past. With a deep breath, I tossed the nickel into the well. As it disappeared into the darkness, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. So, Charlie said, a hint of nervousness in his voice, what now? I looked at him, really looked at him, seeing the kindness and love that had been there all along. Now, I said, we build something new, together. As if on cue, Chance barked happily, chasing seagulls along the shore. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. Over the next few months, life took on a new rhythm. I threw myself into volunteer work at the animal shelter, honoring Mom's memory by supporting the causes she loved. Charlie and I took things slow, building a relationship based on trust and mutual respect. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Charlie turned to me. You know, Joanna, you're not the same woman I met all those months ago. I nodded, understanding what he meant. I'm stronger now? Wiser? And happier? He asked, a hint of hope in his voice. I smiled, leaning in to kiss him softly. Happier than I've ever been. As night fell, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the loss. It had all shaped me, made me who I was now. But it didn't define me anymore. I was Joanna, daughter, friend, animal lover, and now a woman ready to love again. Mom would be proud, I thought. She always said life had a way of surprising us. Looking at Charlie, at Chance curled up at our feet, at the life we were building together, I realized Mom was right. Life does surprise us. But sometimes, if we're brave enough, we can surprise ourselves even more. As the stars came out, twinkling over the ocean, I made a silent vow. To live fully, to love deeply, and to always, always trust my own strength. The road ahead might be uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see where it would lead. After all, this wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning of a whole new chapter.
Go ahead and get welfare, you poor thing. Ha ha. After those words, the two of them left the house. I felt all the strength leave my body and slumped down on the spot. I couldn't help but remember what Greg had said earlier. While you are indeed independent, I've always felt like my pride as a man has been hurt. From now on, I will build a family with my sister-in-law, no, with Brandy. So please, let's get a divorce. I became indifferent to everything and signed the divorce papers to indicate my intention to divorce. Sometime later, I decided to demand property division from them, and we had a meeting with a lawyer present. Brazenly, an unrelated sister demanded a share of the assets. However, the lawyer burst into laughter and said, "Aren't you the one on welfare?" Caught off guard by the sudden turn of events, my sister made a baffled face and let out a ridiculous scream. Immediately after seeing the documents the lawyer had placed on the table, my sister turned pale. My name is Erin Anderson. My husband Greg and I have been married for 18 years. I am 45 years old, while Greg is 3 years younger at 42. We have one daughter, Jenny, who is currently 17 years old and in her second year of high school. She is facing an important period with her exams coming up next year. Greg and I met through work. I was working at a real estate company and Greg was employed at a related company. We hit it off over something trivial and frequently went out in our private lives. Greg is very sensitive and often struggles to make decisions decisively. At the time, I found his indecisiveness endearing and was drawn to him. I wanted to take care of Greg and did so purely because I have a much younger brother. Initially, I saw Greg as a brother and took care of him, but gradually I was attracted to his more masculine sides. After a serious relationship, we got married. Greg, who was usually indecisive, took the initiative to confess and propose. In situations where decisions had to be made, he did so properly. That gap made me feel that I could marry him and be okay. We had Jenny without experiencing any serious arguments or crisis of divorce. I thought that once Jenny became an adult, we would start our second life as a couple. "Hey, Aaron, can I stay here for a bit?" That was until my sister Brandy showed up unannounced with a large suitcase. Besides my brother, I have another sibling, which is the sister standing before me. We get along well with my brother due to the age difference. However, my sister, who is close in age to me, and I have always had a poor relationship. I was always smaller and ended up wearing my sister's hand-me-downs. When our parents felt sorry and bought me a new toy, she would say, "Aw, lucky. Give me one too," and snatch the new doll I had received, replacing it with her old worn-out doll. Her tyranny didn't stop there. Taking things was still on the cuter side. When I entered elementary school, she took all my friends, and when I got my first boyfriend in high school, she seduced him away. I hated her so much that I went to a different university to avoid her, but she still interfered with my life, ruining what should have been a fun college life. I still dislike my sister to this day. If possible, I don't want anything to do with her. So I studied hard, obtained my real estate license, moved to New York, and lived a life without seeing my sister. For our wedding, Greg and I decided to have a photo wedding just for the two of us. Knowing my sister's personality, my parents kept my marriage a secret. Despite my hopes, my sister found out about my presence here. I was looking forward to having some time for myself and my husband once Jenny went to college. "Wow, Aaron, you live in a pretty nice house for yourself. Is it a single-family home? Did you buy it? Oh, there's a room available here. I'll be using this one, thanks." I was snapped back to reality by my sister's shrill voice. "Hey, this is really inconvenient. You can't just show up and expect to stay. My husband and daughter live here too, you know." My sister ignored my words and started looking around the house. Today was a holiday, but Jenny was out attending classes, and Greg had left early in the morning for work. "Could you please leave before the two of them come back?" I pleaded with her repeatedly, but my sister wouldn't listen. Finally, in the evening, both of them came home. Who might this be?" Greg, who looked puzzled, asked. My sister greeted him with a charm that belied her 46 years. "Nice to meet you. I'm Aaron's sister, Brandy. When did you two get married? I had no idea, no greetings or anything. I was visiting our parents' house and found your photo wedding pictures in Mom's room by chance. It's so cold of you, keeping it from your own sister." Greg knew I had a sister, so he looked slightly troubled, probably thinking she was exactly as I had described. But I didn't miss it. Greg was slightly smitten by my beautiful sister. Jenny, returning home to a confused scene, must have been surprised. Suddenly, an odd they had never met before had invaded our home. However, my sister pushed forward with the idea of moving in. Actually, I got fired, and it's been tough managing rent and living expenses, so I was wondering if I could stay here for a bit. "Well, if it's just for a little while, I guess it's okay." "What?" "Now is not the time. Jenny has her exams next year, a critical time." I tried to say that, but the two of them didn't listen to me and got carried away. Actually, Erin told me about her sister. That's okay. Erin probably avoided talking about me, so you went along with it, right? Sorry about my sister. This marked the beginning of a tumultuous daily life. My sister demanded money without doing any chores, and even started taking cash from my wallet. This all happened within just 1 week of her moving in. I had repeatedly warned her about this behavior, but she didn't listen. Hey, if you need money, at least tell me what you're buying or why you need it. Don't just take it from my wallet without asking. What? Why do I need to report to you what I'm buying? Because it's my money. If she was fired, I wished she would job hunt and leave our house quickly. However, it didn't seem like she was looking for a job, and recently, Greg and Brandy's schedules have been suspiciously overlapping. Greg claimed he was working overtime, but his salary never reflected any overtime pay. I confronted him about it. Your salary doesn't include overtime, does it? If you can't ask for overtime pay, should I ask on your behalf? What, are you doubting me? I'm properly paid for my overtime separate from my salary, so there's no issue. Greg, usually mild-mannered, raised his voice for the first time. This was shocking enough for me, as Greg wasn't someone who resorted to emotional arguments or sudden outbursts. From this point, I started to feel a crisis looming over our current lifestyle. My sister continued to laze around the house, costing more money than even Jenny consumed, leaving me with nothing but sighs. I discussed this matter with our parents. They apologized for their lack of oversight, which led to my sister finding out about my marriage and our home, but the fault wasn't with my parents. Despite the distance from my dear parents, I lived quietly with my husband and daughter, yet my sister became obsessed enough to track down our home. She must have been preparing to find out where we lived the moment she discovered the photo wedding pictures Greg and I took. I'm sure she's thinking of taking my things and making me miserable again. I've even begun to doubt whether her claim of being fired is true. Perhaps she quit her job on purpose to freeload at our place and ruin my life. This began to seem like a possibility. If that's the case, I need to kick my sister out of the house as soon as possible. Hey, you said you got fired, but if you were enrolled in employment insurance, wouldn't you be eligible for unemployment benefits? I've always been working part-time, so I wasn't in anything like that. That's why I'm in trouble. I could have gone back to our parents' house, but I can't just make our elderly parents take care of me, right? So as the independent sister, you should take responsibility. That's common sense. I was speechless at her nonsensical statement. After dropping out of college, Brandy had always worked part-time and never as a full-time employee. Learning this fact later made me realize why her job hunting wasn't going well. Then 3 months after Brandy began freeloading, I caught Greg and her in an affair. I had been suspicious, but to actually see them cheating. A meeting was canceled, and while killing time in a cafe, I saw Greg and Brandy walking together, hand in hand, chatting happily. It's inconceivable for a brother-in-law and sister-in-law to hold hands like that. At that moment, I was certain they were having an affair. After a while, when I had made up my mind, I confronted them at home. So the overtime was a lie, huh? And you, pretending to job hunt while actually hanging out with Greg. The worst. Even at this age, you can't be satisfied without taking something from me, can you? That's why I kept my marriage a secret from you. I exploded with emotion. They casually admitted to the affair, then began to say even more infuriating things. If I had known such a beautiful woman was your sister, I wouldn't have avoided her just because you told me to. Aaron, you're indeed independent, but I've always felt my pride as a man was being hurt. From now on, I want to build a family with my sister-in-law. No, with Brandy. So let's get a divorce. He then pushed a divorce paper towards me, already filled out in Greg's section. Fine, there's no way we can rebuild this. Brandy, Greg, from now on, I won't be responsible for your financial support, so just know that. Brandy then laughed out loud and said, "Go ahead and get welfare. You poor thing." What? As I wondered what she meant, Greg, half smiling, added something even more appalling. Oh, that's right. Since custody usually favors the mother, it's better for our daughter to be with you, Aaron. Do whatever you want from now on. With those words, they left the house. A few minutes later, Jenny came home and was puzzled by the quietness of the house. I honestly told her that we were getting a divorce. Initially shocked, Jenny seemed somewhat relieved as she accepted the situation. After a while, the divorce was finalized. I decided to discuss compensation with them in the presence of a lawyer I hired. Shamelessly, Brandy demanded a division of assets. However, the lawyer burst into laughter and said, "Aren't you the one who should be on welfare?" Caught off guard by the sudden turn of events, Brandy made a baffled face and let out a ridiculous scream. Immediately after seeing the documents the lawyer placed on the table, Brandy turned pale. This couple doesn't have the kind of money that can be divided. Brandy looked shocked as she glanced back and forth between Greg and me. Of course, Greg was also surprised to hear that we hardly had any assets. Anticipating this, I had taken certain actions immediately after witnessing Greg and Brandy's affair. Therefore, the only cash between us was a mere $112,000. For a couple celebrating their 18th wedding anniversary, it's a hard-to-believe amount. "Hey, what's going on? You had a lot of savings, didn't you?" Greg, completely bewildered, asked this in a panic. Seeing him like that, I felt a surge of anger. "You really have no interest in Jenny, do you?" We talked about this. I said I've been saving up for her education, but now I'm thinking of transferring it to Jenny's account. You told me to do as I wish, so I transferred almost all of my savings to Jenny's account for her education. You should know this better than anyone. Jenny is managing her own money, and even after paying gift tax, it's no longer considered our savings. I said this with a composed face. Greg's complexion turned visibly worse as he remembered the conversation. "Then what's the breakdown of the $112,000? Greg asked. "About 80% of it is probably your secret savings," I replied. Saying this, Greg looked at me as if wondering how I knew about it. "You knew about it and transferred your savings to Jenny, anticipating the division of property. You agreed to it, remember? You even signed the consent form." At this, Greg became furious. I thought it was strange. "Why would you ask for my consent just for that?" Greg said, frantically scratching his head, clearly regretting his actions. But it was too late to take back his signature. The lawyer confirmed that since Greg had agreed to the gift to Jenny, it was no longer considered marital savings. I didn't want to give such money to these two. That's why I thought of making a living gift, I explained. Hearing this, Brandy was dumbfounded, but somehow managed to say to Greg, "Hey, you said we had plenty of savings. Weren't we supposed to live a luxurious life together? Dividing $112,000 won't amount to much. Why didn't you realize Aaron's intentions sooner?" Brandy reproached Greg, her face turning pale, but Greg avoided her gaze and kept silent. Greg had been earning little and had a considerable amount of student loans, so he hardly contributed to the living expenses after our marriage. However, this was agreed upon. When Greg mentioned it was difficult for him to contribute to living expenses, I said, "All right, I'll manage all the living expenses. So could you focus on saving money for our old age as much as possible?" Thus, I had been covering all living expenses for over a decade. Greg thought he had been able to save at least $1,000 or more, but when it was revealed it was less than $10,000, I was shocked. I had thought saving would be easy, since he didn't have to pay living expenses, but Greg had been secretly squandering money. I felt betrayed when I accidentally saw his bank book left on the desk and learned of the savings amount. However, now that we're divorced, such matters no longer concern me. Brandy, finally grasping the severity of the situation, trembled slightly, trying hard to think of what to do next, but apparently came up with nothing. Knowing that the cash available for division was only $122,000, and seeing Brandy's confusion, I decided to reveal another truth. I looked towards Greg and said, I was debating whether to say this, but Greg, aren't you planning to quit your job? At that moment, our eyes met squarely. Greg, visibly shaken, glanced left and right before exclaiming, How do you know I'm planning to quit my job? I only talked about it with the boss. I thought so after seeing the payroll slip. My observation was based on the fact that no overtime pay was being paid. But actually, I found it strange looking at a certain section. This is about the use of paid leave. Greg, who used to work for a real estate company and now works for a construction company, has never taken more than the minimum required 5 days of paid leave. However, recent pay slips revealed that Greg had taken a bunch of paid leave all at once, which usually suggests resignation. At this time, I was already suspecting their affair, wondering if Greg decided to quit his job thinking he would get a large sum of money after divorcing me. To my surprise, this guess was right on the mark. I couldn't help but sigh at Greg's overly optimistic thinking. Well, you are my husband, so you should at least know what job I do and how much wealth I've accumulated. To think you relied on that, cheated, and even chose to resign. You really haven't thought this through, I said. Greg's face turned red. The lawyer's remark to Brandy, asking if she was the one on welfare, meant that if the two unemployed individuals came together, they would end up on welfare unless they worked. Brandy, flustered by this realization, suddenly shouted, Wait a minute. If you can prepare for Jenny's college expenses and cover living costs all by yourself, there must be something fishy. I get it, you're hiding assets, right? That's the only explanation. Come on, confess now. Hearing her words, Greg seemed to have an epiphany. That's right, Brandy. Actually, Aaron owns a lot of real estate, so we have to divide those assets too. Close call, I almost got tricked. Real estate is a significant asset, and we need to split it fairly between us. You've been acting all high and mighty, but you're also using sneaky tactics. Watching the two of them laughing about this, I was just dumbfounded. The lawyer couldn't help but chuckle at their ignorance. The tension in the room heightened. The lawyer cleared his throat and began to speak plainly. If we're going to talk about the division of property, you should study up a bit more, Greg. As the ex-husband, you should know that Aaron owns real estate through her company, generating profit. A corporation and an individual are separate entities. Aaron's company is her separate property, and it cannot be divided as marital property. The professionals have spoken, and there's no mistake. Realizing this, the two of them turned red and were speechless. The lawyer continued, What can be considered for division are things like cars, houses, and cash savings. Moreover, Greg and Brandy have virtually admitted to their affair, allowing Aaron to demand compensation from you too. Let's say $10,000 from Greg and $3,000 from Brandy. As soon as they heard this, their faces contorted. Isn't that too high? It was just a few months' affair, they protested. Yeah, isn't this normally not as much as $10,000? They seemed not to have expected such a turn of events and began making excuses. However, I immediately countered, Who decided that? The market is just a reference. Greg, you took leave to secretly date my sister, and she didn't even bother to properly job hunt, instead choosing to live off my money. The lawyer objectively assessed the situation and decided on this amount. What would you have preferred, a higher amount? At that, they hastily shook their heads no. The discussion couldn't be concluded in just one day and was adjourned. But I felt a firm respect response. 2 weeks later, we convened again for discussions. Brandy, with a defiant attitude, said, Give me the house and the regular car. Is that what you call compensatory property division? Then give Greg's $122,000 to him, and I'll pay the remaining $1,000. Okay. Hearing such nonsensical demands, I was about to yell in anger, but managed to control myself with reason and slowly sorted out the situation. The house still had a mortgage and required maintenance regularly, so it would have some value if sold. The car was also relatively new, purchased just 5 years ago. Accepting my sister's proposal would mean a loss for me, which I absolutely did not want. Sister, did you even do the math? If you consider selling the house and car, you wouldn't say such things. Usually, it's not the cheating party, you guys, who should be making these demands. It's me, as I pondered how brazen they could be. Greg, sitting next to my sister, overlapped my words with his own, beginning to say something else. You own assets worth $170 million in the company, right? I don't care if you're some real estate mogul or whatever, but being so stingy with all that wealth is just insane. Caught off guard for a moment, I ended up laughing at their absurdity, given the situation. Seeing me suddenly burst into laughter made the two of them freeze. After a good laugh, I returned to a serious expression. So is that all you wanted to say? And why are you acting like you're the victims here? Stingy? I'd rather be stingy than give any money to a man who abandons his daughter for an affair, or to the worst kind of sister who steals her sibling's husband. I'd rather secure as much as possible for Jenny. They flinched at my words. I wanted to tell them to study more about legal terms if they wanted to use them. What were they even thinking, saying such things? I planned to dismantle their delusions bit by bit. Greg, this house is under my name, right? I know that, but we've lived together here, Greg interjected. So what? It's my separate property since I bought it with a mortgage before we got married. No matter how you twist it, it remains mine, I clarified. The car, bought new, is accident-free and of a model that sells well. If you want it, you'll have to pay me half its appraised value. That's how property division works. We own 2 cars. One is the new car currently being discussed, the other a used compact car. Probably wouldn't fetch much, but the lawyer said houses and cars are subject to property division. Brandy added. She said this without thinking it through, but that's not what it meant. Look, the lawyer was just mentioning the main things subject to property division, not that they'd necessarily be divided in our case. All we have to divide between us is the $112,000 from Greg's secret savings and my savings, plus the 2 cars. That's it, I explained. Naturally, Brandy was clueless, and Greg hadn't thought it through, landing them in trouble again. Greg pleaded with me after showing some semblance of thought. Can you just give us enough money to start our new life? Please. His apology seemed superficial. He just wanted to solve the immediate problem. I don't need such a shallow apology, I steeled my heart and responded. Given your attitude, it seems like you wouldn't want to pay for Jenny's child support either. There's not a single thing I'm willing to compromise on. Why should I have to worry about your living expenses? I firmly stated my position, and realizing they couldn't persuade me further, they reluctantly signed the necessary documents. Sometime after the divorce and property division were settled, Brandy called me repeatedly, complaining, why did Greg have so much debt? You were paying the living expenses, right? Then why would he need to borrow money? What's going on? She was frantic over the phone. I patiently explained the reality to her that should have been obvious when it came out that he only had less than $10,000 saved despite having years to save. Maybe he made some big purchases on credit or something like that, I suggested. As I asked this, Brandy eagerly shared her situation. Yes, he took loans of several thousands to buy nonsensical brand items. And it turns out his credit card was set to revolving payments, without him knowing, making a huge mess. So this guy is just a debt disaster. How could you push such a person onto me? Push onto you? You're the one who stole him, remember. I couldn't help but retort with a half-laugh, and Brandy fell silent. It seems Greg had been accumulating debts I wasn't even aware of. Now demand letters are arriving in droves. He must have been careless with his address change, or perhaps in the chaos of starting a new life, he forgot to hide them. Oh, and there's one more thing I haven't told you, Brandy, I continued. What now? Brandy was utterly terrified. But hearing about the debt made me recall something Greg had mentioned. He was working in construction now as a sole proprietor. While this meant his income and residence taxes were deducted, he was responsible for managing other necessary payments himself. Being self-employed, I handled my national pension and health insurance. And when Greg left his job in real estate, I made arrangements for Jenny to be covered by the national health insurance as well. I took care of my taxes and such, but it turned out Greg hadn't paid his national pension for a year since he switched jobs, I explained. I was covering the health insurance, so there was no issue there. Due to some mistake, a national pension demand notice was sent to our house. I contacted Greg and got his permission to open it, and it was indeed a demand notice he had been hiding all along, and I hadn't noticed. I pay my own national pension and assumed Greg was paying his. When I called Greg about opening the demand notice, he almost cried and begged for help. National pension costs that much. You're kidding, right? I can't pay this. We were a family, weren't we? Can't you do something, please? What? You have the nerve to say that. The very person who abandoned his wife and child is asking for help. My logic left Greg speechless again. Realizing there was no way out, Brandy seemed to lose all hope over the phone as well. So you'll have to figure it out yourselves. I ended the call eventually. Greg called, complaining about the high taxes on the car I had taken, and how expensive the vehicle inspection was. Maintaining a car costs this much. I thought taxes were just a few $10, but they're in the hundreds, and the vehicle inspection costs so much. Hog, it's tough, isn't it? Can't you take it back? No, after I curtly refused, Greg hung up deflated. He kept sending emails asking for help, but when I warned him that any more harassment would lead me to report him for stalking, he stopped. Brandy and Greg were in for a hell worse than hell itself. They ended up divorcing after only 3 months of marriage. Immediately following our divorce, their plan had been doomed from the start. When they realized the house under my name wasn't part of the assets to be divided, their marriage was never going to work. With tens of thousands in debt and compensation to pay, their divorce was more tumultuous than my own. With Greg, Brandy was always fixated on money. Sell the new car. It's a waste to keep something like that. Might as well cash it in, right? What? I don't care about that petty cash. Besides, I paid your compensation in full, so if we're splitting, you owe me that money. They couldn't finalize their divorce because of such petty arguments. Eventually, Greg chose to declare bankruptcy, unaffectedly by me since I had already collected the lump sum compensation. Greg ended up jobless and penniless, leading him to homelessness. He couldn't retract his statement about quitting his job and left the company. Pride prevented him from applying for welfare, and now he's likely living a miserable life, begging on the streets. Brandy faced divine retribution after stealing her sister's husband and divorcing in just 3 months. Her social relationships crumbled, disowned by family and relatives. She struggled with job hunting due to her attitude. Even when she managed to get part-time jobs, her domineering nature and refusal to accept fault led to immediate dismissals. The lawyer's warning about welfare became reality. Brandy, clinging to her possessions, was ineligible for welfare evicted from her apartment, and became homeless like Greg. They trampled on the feelings of both me and Jenny with their selfish actions, so this punishment was only natural. Now it's just the two of us living together, but our days haven't changed much. Jenny said she felt relieved after Greg, who never did anything for her yet, always complained about studying and going to a good university, was gone. And then she splendidly passed the entrance exam to an Ivy League university. Seeing my daughter about to start her college life this fall fills me with renewed emotion. As I near 46, busy in a good way with work, and still healthy, I'm motivated to keep pushing forward. Hi guys, this is the story of my abusive mother-in-law and my useless husband who didn't even bother to protect me. I'll be using fake names in my story since I don't want to be identified. Sharing my story is one thing, but handling real-life drama is another, so I don't want anyone to find me. Let's say my name is Peyton. Grant is my husband, and Joanie is my mother-in-law. There's also my grandma, Lily, who is the sole reason why I'm still alive today. Let me tell you from the beginning. Grant was more or less a good boyfriend to me. I was completely in love with him and ready to marry him, so when he proposed to me, I immediately said yes. But my life completely changed after that. Grant suddenly started to show lots of red flags. I discovered that he and his mother are extremely close, and his mother essentially controlled him. It was Joanne who first started to create problems. She was living with us and mooching off her son. One day, she just walked in with some papers and said, "Peyton, you need to come and sign these papers. The faster you do it, the better for you." "What are those papers, Joanne?" "This is an ironclad prenup that you both need to sign. It says that in case of a divorce, none of you can claim anything from each other. Sign it right now." "Wait a minute, did you just make a prenup without consulting us?" "This is really humiliating, Joan. Why would you do that?" "I did this so you can't take my son to the cleaners in case of a divorce. You earn way less than him, and this house is his. We cannot trust you enough to try and take everything from him." "This is insane, Joanne. I am not some witch that you make me out to be. This is ridiculous. I won't sign a prenup just like that. I feel insulted. You should have talked to us about this." "Actually, I know about the prenup. It's not a big deal, Peyton. If you are really not with me for money, you should have no problem signing this." I was pretty taken aback at the fact that Joanne and Grant had a discussion but didn't even tell me. No, I was not with Grant for money. I didn't earn much, but I had a big inheritance in store for me. I didn't tell Grant that yet. Grant and I fought for days, and Joanne regularly verbally insulted me for not signing the papers. After a while, I went to my grandma for help. She listened to everything I said and said, "Honey, are you sure you want to marry this man? I don't think he's the right one for you. You two aren't even married yet, and he's already making plans with his mother to corner you. It's just this one problem, Grandma. I really love Grant, and he loves me too. I really can't imagine marrying someone else. He is a good man." Well, if you really already made that decision, I would actually encourage you to sign the prenup. I'll send my lawyer to read through the terms, but I have a request to make. You should never mention that your grandparents are millionaires. I don't want them to know. I haven't told them anything yet, Grandma, but why don't you want me to say it? I understand things better than you, Peyton. You're seeing them with rose-tinted glasses. Your grandfather and I worked hard to build this fortune. I don't want anyone to take advantage of you and steal your money. Grandma, you don't have to worry about that. I won't tell them anything since you asked me not to. Besides, Grant is a good man, and he will never do that. If his mother becomes too much, I'm sure he'll protect his wife. I was wrong. Grant was a horrible man, and his mother was much worse than I knew. I gave in and signed the prenup and later realized what a wise decision it was. As soon as we got married, Joey started to abuse me regularly. Even after signing the prenup, she verbally and sometimes physically abused me. I'm too ashamed to speak of the things she did, but I will mention one incident. This incident is important because it was the turning point of my marriage. One day, when I was home after work, Jonah came storming into my room with a smirk on her face. She handed me a big bag of clothes and demanded that I wash them. I didn't protest because I was used to this behavior. I knew that if I refused to do it, she would tell Grant, and then the two would verbally abuse me. It was a routine, so I picked up the heavy bag even though it was hard for me. While I was going down the hall, Joan tripped me and I fell. I hurt my ankle and screamed out in pain. Joan laughed at me and left. After putting an ice pack on my ankle, I called Grant. Grant, I fell down and hurt my ankle. Your mother tripped me today. I have taken her abuse for a long time now. You need to do something. She's crossed her limits. Don't make up lies about Mom, Peyton. She would never do something like that. You just want her out of the house and don't want to do chores. Stop lying and defaming my mom. I'm not lying, Grant. Please believe me. Don't waste my time, Peyton. Go back and do the chores my mom gave you. I don't want another complaint out of your mouth. Grant simply hung up on me. He never stood up for me and always acted like I was in the wrong. I didn't say anything because I didn't want him to leave. But this time I couldn't take it anymore. I just cracked. Actually, I was secretly seeing a therapist with the help of my grandma, so their abusive ways were becoming too much to handle. It was at this point that I knew I had to get out. What pissed me off even more was that Joan sent me some nasty texts saying how I deserved what she did, and that Grant would never speak against her. I was freaking mad. I made up my mind that I needed revenge. The opportunity showed up later. My grandma passed away. I was sad but relieved because she was in a lot of pain. I couldn't stand to see her in so much pain. I stayed strong, thinking that she had finally reunited with my granddad and was now free from pain. Grant didn't even help me, even a little, when my grandma passed away. He didn't even show up to the funeral or anything, but he got to know that I received $250 million as an inheritance. Yes, they were that rich. Grant absolutely lost it with shock. He was being extra nice to me. When we went home the next day, another surprise awaited me. Joan was at the foot of my bed, looking very sweetly at me. I was surprised to find her in my room, looking creepily at me. I honestly didn't know what to think of it. In my mind, I could see this coming, but still, watching my abusive mother-in-law change her face was starting to creep me out. I said, "What are you doing here, Joan? No one told me you were coming today. Hell, why were you staring at me in my sleep?" "Oh, I came early so that I can help you with the chores. I made you tea, and it's right beside the bed. I know how much you love tea, so I ordered a special batch for you. You didn't answer why you were sitting in my room when I was sleeping. Honestly, Joanne, it is creepy as hell. I was trying to massage your feet, Peyton. I know you hurt your feet while carrying my laundry that day. Your feet must be so sore, so I thought maybe I could massage them for you. You literally tripped me that day, Joan. How dare you show up and try to massage my feet? Don't you have any shame?" No, you don't have to be so dramatic about that one. It was an honest mistake. I didn't know you would fall or that the load was so heavy. I already massaged your foot and made up for it, didn't I? You think massaging my foot will make up for the way that you have abused me? You are insane, Joanne. Get out of my room. I don't want to see your face right now. All right, I'll be in the kitchen making you breakfast. You don't have to worry about it anymore. I will take care of it. I will also make sure Grant has everything ready as well. You take your time and freshen up. Joan said that sweetly and left with a skip in her step. Her shift in attitude was making my head spin. Even when I was lying down, I felt like she had breached my privacy and was acting like a lunatic. Money can rarely make people do things, you know. Joan is solid proof of it. Grant must have told her to avoid my inheritance, which prompted her to make this visit a change of heart. But neither Grant nor Joan knew that none of them would get their hands on my fortune. I had made sure of that. I got out of bed and got dressed in my best set of clothes. It was my day of revenge, and I wanted to look my best. My therapy was working very well, and I finally had the confidence to stand up for myself. I went down to the kitchen with my bag and towel. It had some important documents that I needed to send out today. I guess you can tell what I was about to do. I found Grant with Joan in the kitchen. They both looked very happy and were whispering something to each other. When they saw me, their smiles just became 2 times wider. Grant drew the chair out for me while Joan said about fixing me a plate. I said, "Why did you make breakfast today?" "I would have done it by myself. You didn't have to trouble yourself with it. Grant hates it when you do something in this house." "What nonsense. I'm happy to do this for you, Peyton." "It's not a big deal," Joan replied. "Yes, it's just breakfast. My mom can do this for you. You don't have to worry about any kind of work from now on. Once we sell the house and buy a mansion, I'll look for a housekeeper. Till then, my mother can look after all the chores. I'll help her out too. You think buying my medicines is a waste of money, but suddenly hiring a housekeeper is cheap for you. Also, how do you plan to buy a mansion? Been robbing a bank recently? Don't be ridiculous. We have plenty of money to do everything now. You just got a huge inheritance from your grandmother." Yes, Grant is right. Finally, we are millionaires now. We don't have to worry about money anymore. Your inheritance would be enough to last us a lifetime. We can do whatever we want now, Joan chimed in. Yeah, I've been thinking about quitting my job. I was getting burnt out at this place anyway. Maybe we can take a vacation and have some fun. What do you say? Grant added. I started to laugh very loudly at what they said. I couldn't believe my ears. It has been like 1 day since I received my inheritance, and these two have already started to make plans. They really think that I would just hand them over the money and let them do what they want. 1 day of fake good behavior was supposed to wash away years of abuse that I suffered at the hands of my husband and mother-in-law. Joanne and Grant looked a little uncomfortable with my laughter and were trying to look away. Their own plans may have sounded just ridiculous to them too, since they held on to the hope that I would magically forgive them. After laughing for a few seconds, I said, "My God, it's been like 1 day since I got my inheritance. Look how drastically you have changed your tunes. Money does make a difference, doesn't it? Let's not remember the old days now. We had no idea you had such good luck coming your way. We would have treated you better if we knew," Grant said. Yeah, you shouldn't be hiding things from your husband and in-laws, Peyton. That was very sneaky of you. Anyway, what should we do with so much money? I was thinking of a house in the Caribbean. Don't just say house. Say mansion or villa. We can even opt for a penthouse. That would suit our status better. We are millionaires after all. All my friends would be so jealous of me, Joan added. I listened to their banter and then casually took out the documents that I was hiding in my folder. Joan and Grant looked expectantly at me, as if I was giving them papers saying all the money was theirs now. But they were in for a shock. I held the papers in hand and said, I would like to correct you there, guys. We are not millionaires. I am a millionaire now. The money is mine, and I got it as my inheritance. Yes, you did get the money, but we share everything. We are married, after all, so you should be sharing your money with me, Grant said. Yes, and as your mother-in-law and only surviving family right now, you should share the money with me as well. We are family, after all. You are my daughter as much as Grant is my son, Joan said. It's ironic how I have suddenly become your daughter, Joan. Till about yesterday, I was just the witch your son married. Anyway, you shouldn't get so carried away. We won't be family anymore, not that we were ever family anyway. What do you mean, Peyton? I'm your mother-in-law, so I am family. How would you be my mother-in-law when I won't be married to your son anymore? If Grant loses his husband's title, you'll be less than nothing to me. What is the meaning of this, Peyton? Why won't I be your husband anymore? What is going on? Well, I have filed for divorce. I did it the day after my grandma died. I won't be staying with you anymore, Grant. You're a terrible husband, and don't deserve to be one. Saying that, I threw the divorce papers on the table. Grant and Jan both read the papers to check if I was speaking the truth. When they read through the documents, their eyes shot up to the sky. They looked at the papers in disbelief and then gave each other worried glances. I guess they didn't think I would be capable of filing for divorce. They said, "What is this, Peyton? Why have you filed for divorce? This doesn't make any sense. You think I'm weak enough to be stuck in an abusive marriage for the rest of my life. Why are you surprised, Grant? I had told you this was coming. I told you the very day Joan tripped me. My God, why are you still stuck in the past? I have apologized for it. Plus, it has happened already, and I can't change that. You need to be a little forgiving. This is not a big enough problem to warrant a divorce. Mom has already made amends for that. So you, Jen, confess to tripping me, and all you do is tell me to get over it. Get this into your head, guys. I am divorcing you, and you won't get a cent of my inheritance. I can't believe I fell in love with such a vile man like you, Grant. I'm ashamed I tried my best to impress a monster like you, Jan, but this abuse ends now. We are definitely getting a divorce, and we can do this the simple way or the difficult way. Suddenly, Grant and Jan looked very pissed at me. I guess they didn't like the fact that I called them out on their behavior. They knew that since I filed for divorce already, I was dead serious. It wasn't a threat to make them do what I wanted. They were now willing to follow my wishes anyway, since I had lots of money. They said, "What's the use of divorcing me, Peyton? You have more money than me because your inheritance is our marital asset. I will get half of it anyway. You might have half, but most of it will be spent on the lawyer. God, did you forget about the prenup that you and your mother forcefully made me sign? I'm sure my dear mother-in-law can remind you of it. She was adamant we sign a prenup." It suddenly dawned on them that they had screwed themselves over back then. They had no idea that I would somehow become a millionaire. They wanted to protect themselves because they knew no sane woman would stay with them after their abuse. The prenup was a way for them to abuse people and not have any consequences for it. But this time, they just played themselves. They dug their own graves. They said, the prenup was a long time ago. I'll talk to a lawyer and find out what we can do. We won't let you walk away with all that money. Yeah, you are doing this to threaten us. You can't do anything to us, Peyton. We will take your money and do what we please with it. So I take it that you will try and fight me in court. Oh, don't worry, Peyton. We will make this hard for you. You can't just decide on your own. I'll fight you in court. You can't get divorced without my signature, remember that. Really, Grant? So you will intentionally make the process difficult for me? Well, that's not an issue. I'm prepared for everything. I have some ammo of my own. What do you mean, Peyton? Joan, remember how you confessed to tripping me and abusing me in texts? Well, I will use them to file a report to the cops. That would be a fun event, won't it? No, you won't do that. You won't do that to me. That is impossible. I'll delete all the texts. Don't worry, Joan. I have all the texts saved and sent to some of my friends. Trust me, I'm perfectly capable of reporting you to the police. In fact, I can also show how Grant knew and didn't do anything to save me. It'll be a downhill battle for you in divorce court. Joan and Grant immediately started to hound me with apologies. They forgot the fact that I had the power to put Joan in jail. They thought I had let go of the incident, but I was just biding my time and using this for the right moment. Joan and Grant were in deep trouble. They were unsure of what to do. I took the divorce papers with me and left the house. I would collect my things the next day. Grant and Joan tried to stop me and said, "Don't walk away from us, Peyton. Let's sit and have a conversation about it. We can deal with the situation like adults and not make any rash decisions." Yeah, you have to stay here anyway. Where will you go? Let's talk about it. I'm moving into my grandmother's house. It has already been transferred to my name. I will be living there and waiting for Grant to decide on the divorce. I'm taking the papers with me so that you can't damage them and make me file again. As for my things, I've taken pictures of everything. Don't even think about damaging or getting rid of anything. Grant and Joan went on trying to stop me, but I had already called a friend who was waiting for me outside. I got into her car and drove off with her. Grant and Joan stood at the door and stared at us the whole time. After going to my new place, I contacted a moving company and booked them to bring my things from the house. In the months that followed, Grant and Joan did their best to try and change my mind. I kept reminding them about going to the cops because Grant didn't sign the divorce papers. Grant did talk to a lawyer who told him in no uncertain terms that the prenup was solid and he had no way out. After being threatened by me multiple times, Grant was forced to sign the divorce papers. He didn't want his mom in jail after all. Plus, he knew I would never give him a chance again. Grant and Joan are currently not talking to each other. Wondering why? Well, Grant did not take the divorce very well and started to blame Joan for causing problems between us. Grant was sure that Joan was the reason he missed out on being a millionaire. After having countless fights with her, he ended up kicking her out with nothing. Since Joan lived off Grant's money, she was left homeless and without funds. Last I heard, Joan was in a homeless woman's shelter with no idea what to do with herself. I did the course of informing everyone what horrible people Joan and Grant are, so they have been isolated from people. No one really talks to them. As for me, I'm enjoying my new life and casually watching the aftermath. I still stay at my grandma's place since it holds sentimental value to me. From my inheritance, I have donated some money to women's help centers and plan on doing more for them. The rest of the money has been invested and secured for my future family. I still work at my old job since I don't want to sit idle. Life is good so far, and I'm hopeful I will meet someone who deserves me. I'm Emily, a 33-year-old woman who's all about being neat and organized. I work as an auditor in a big firm, and my friends often joke about my love for keeping receipts and paying taxes on time. But hey, I think it's these little things that keep my life in order. So let me tell you about how I met my husband, Jake. We met at a party thrown by our mutual friend, Lisa. I remember that night clearly. I was sipping on a glass of wine, chatting with some old college friends when Jake walked in. He was a bit older, with a confident stride and a charming smile. He worked as a manager at a food sales company. "Hey, I'm Jake. Do you mind if I join you?" he said, holding a beer and looking directly at me. "Sure, I'm Emily." "Nice to meet you," I replied, giving him a smile. We started talking, and I was surprised by how easy it was to chat with him. We discovered that we both loved hiking and had a shared passion for classic rock music. A few months into our relationship, Jake invited me to his sister Sarah's barbecue. It was my first time meeting his family, and I was a bit nervous. When we arrived, Sarah greeted us warmly, but her 3 kids were a different story. They were running around screaming and throwing toys everywhere. "Hey, Sarah, this is Emily," Jake said, introducing me. "Nice to meet you, Emily. These are my little rascals, Mike, Tom, and Lily," Sarah said, barely holding on to Tom, who was wriggling out of her grasp. "Nice to meet you all," I replied, trying to hide my unease. As the evening went on, the kids got wilder. They were climbing on furniture, throwing food, and screaming at the top of their lungs. I looked at Jake, hoping he'd say something, but he just smiled and shrugged. "Aren't they just full of energy?" he said, chuckling. I forced a smile. Yeah, they sure are. As our relationship grew, Jake and I started talking about the future. He proposed to me during a hike on top of a beautiful hill overlooking the valley. It was simple and sweet, just the way I liked it. Our wedding was a lovely affair, except for one little hiccup: Sarah's kids. They were at it again, running around, making a mess, and being loud. Sarah didn't seem to care, and Jake just found it amusing. "Look at them, they're having so much fun," Jake said, laughing as he watched them spill drinks and toss food around. "Yeah, but they're also making a huge mess," I replied, trying to keep my irritation in check. "Oh, come on, Em. They're just kids. Let them enjoy," he said, shrugging it off. I didn't want to ruin our special day by arguing, so I let it go, hoping things would get better once we settled into our new life together. So after we got married, Jake and I decided to take the plunge and buy a house together. We had been living in a rented apartment, but we wanted a place to call our own. I can handle the furniture, appliances, and some art pieces. "What about you?" I asked. "Well, I was thinking I could buy you a new car. I know your old one is giving you trouble," Jake suggested. I was surprised and happy. "Really? That would be amazing. My car is practically falling apart." "Yeah, I've seen it struggle. It's time you had something reliable," he said with a smile. We started house hunting right away. After a few weeks of looking, we found a beautiful house that we both loved. It was a bit pricey, but we decided it was worth it. Moving in was a hectic process, but I was excited about decorating our new home. One Saturday, Jake surprised me with a new car. It was a sleek, shiny sedan, and I was thrilled. "Jake, this is incredible. Thank you so much," I exclaimed, hugging him tightly. "You're welcome, Emily." "You deserve it," he said, looking proud of himself. As we settled into our new home, things seemed to be going well. We both enjoyed our jobs and loved coming home to our cozy house. But there were small things that started to bother me. Jake's laid-back attitude, which I once found charming, was beginning to get on my nerves, especially when it came to household chores. "Jake, can you help me with the dishes tonight?" I asked one evening after dinner. Em, I had a long day at work. Can't we just leave them for tomorrow?" he replied, looking at me with pleading eyes. "Jake, we can't keep putting things off. I'm tired too, but we need to keep this place clean," I insisted. "Fine, I'll do it," he said, sighing heavily as he got up from the couch. So a few months into our marriage, I started worrying because I couldn't get pregnant. It was really stressing me out. I went to the doctor and he told me to be patient, that it would happen when the time was right. Still, it was hard not to worry about it. Meanwhile, Jake's sister, Sarah, with her 3 kids, was visiting a lot. Sarah lives in a neighboring state, but you'd think she lived next door with how often she was around. Every time she came over, she'd unload all her problems with her husband on me. It was nonstop. During dinner, while we were trying to relax, she'd be at it, talking about her issues. "Emily, you won't believe what John did this time," Sarah would start, rolling her eyes. "Sarah, can we talk about something else for once?" I'd ask, trying to steer the conversation away from her marital drama. "Oh, come on, Emily. I need to vent." "You're the only one who understands," she'd reply, not getting the hint at all. And her kids, they were a nightmare. As soon as they stepped into our house, it was like a circus. They'd run around fighting with each other, throwing food, and just being loud. After a long week at work, all I wanted was some peace and quiet, but that was impossible with those kids around. "Guys, can you calm down, please?" I'd say, trying to keep my cool as they tore through the living room. "Why are you always so uptight, Emily?" Sarah would snap at me whenever I tried to get her kids to behave. "They're making a mess, Sarah." "I just cleaned the house," I'd respond, feeling my patience wearing thin. "Well, maybe if you had your own kids, you'd understand," she shot back one day, her words hitting me like a punch in the gut. I was stunned by how insensitive she was, especially knowing how much I was struggling with getting pregnant. It felt like a slap in the face, and I couldn't believe Jay didn't say anything to defend me. "Jake, are you going to let her talk to me like that?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. "Emily, calm down, you're making a big deal out of nothing," he said, siding with her again. A big deal out of nothing. She just insulted me in my own home. I shouted, feeling the tears well up. I was so done. I couldn't keep living like this, constantly disrespected in my own home, with my husband always taking his sister's side. It was clear to me that something had to change, and soon. One Saturday, Sarah shows up with her 3 kids. She dumps them on me and says, "Emily, I need a break from parenting. I'm going shopping." I couldn't help but chuckle when she said, "parenting." The woman barely knows what that means. I mean, come on, every time she's here, it's like a zoo. "Fine, Sarah, but you'd better be quick," I said, already feeling the stress coming on. "Thanks, Emily, you're a lifesaver," she chirped, grabbing her purse and bolting out the door before I could say anything else. Great, I thought. Just what I needed. I was in the kitchen trying to cook dinner. It's a long process, and I like things done right. But with those kids running wild, it was impossible to focus. They were yelling, running around, and making a mess. "Guys, can you keep it down?" I shouted from the kitchen, hoping they'd listen for once. Of course they didn't. Suddenly, I heard a loud crash. My heart sank. I ran into the living room, and there it was. My grandfather's antique Chinese vase, shattered on the floor. My chest tightened with anger and frustration. What the hell happened here? I screamed, looking at the kids, who were now standing still, looking guilty. "We were just playing," one of them mumbled, not meeting my eyes. "This vase is priceless. It's from my grandfather. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I was livid, shaking with anger. Just then, Jake walked in, looking all calm and clueless. "What's going on, Emily?" he asked. "Your nephews just broke my grandfather's vase. Look at this mess." I pointed at the shattered pieces on the floor. "Calm down, Emily, it's just a vase. We can get it fixed. he said, shrugging like it was no big deal. Just a vase. This isn't about the vase, Jake. It's about respect. I'm tired of this. Every time Sarah comes over, our house turns into a disaster zone, and you don't care. I shouted, my voice cracking with frustration. Just then, Sarah walked in, bags in hand, looking annoyed. What's all this yelling about? Your kids broke my grandfather's vase, I said, trying to hold back my tears. Well, maybe you should have kept a better eye on them, Emily, she said, not even bothering to apologize. Are you kidding me? Your kids, Sarah. I shouldn't have to watch them. I was furious, my hands shaking with anger. Jake just shook his head, looking annoyed. You're overreacting, Emily. Just drop it. Overreacting? I've had enough of this. I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter in my own home. I screamed, the tears finally spilling over. Jake just stood there, silent and cold, while Sarah smirked like she had won some sort of victory. I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed out of the room, feeling a mix of anger, hurt, and betrayal. We'd been dealing with Sarah and her kids' chaotic visits for months, but I had no idea what was coming next. One morning, Jake was sitting at the kitchen table, munching on his toast, when he casually dropped a bombshell on me. Emily, I need to tell you something. Sarah's getting divorced, and she's moving in with us with the kids for a few months, he said, like he was just telling me the weather. I almost dropped my coffee. What? Are you serious? Our house is already a madhouse when they visit for a day. How are we supposed to handle them living here for months? I exclaimed. She's my sister, Emily. She needs our help. You need to be more understanding, he said, looking at me like I was the one being unreasonable. Understanding? I've been more than understanding, Jake, but this is too much. Why can't we rent a place for her nearby? I'll even pay for the first month's rent. I suggested, trying to keep my cool. No, she'll be better off here. Plus, you can help with the kids and keep things clean. He said like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I'm not a babysitter, Jake. I work too, and I need to relax when I get home, I said, my frustration boiling over. Stop being so selfish, Emily. It's family. They need us, he said, his tone getting sharper. I'm not being selfish, Jake. I'm just asking for a reasonable solution. I'm not going to let my life be turned upside down, I said, feeling my anger bubbling up. Well, they're coming tomorrow evening, so you better get used to the idea, he said, standing up and heading out of the kitchen. I couldn't believe it. I felt completely blindsided and betrayed. The next morning, I woke up early, still fuming from our argument. I got dressed for work and went to grab my car keys, but they were nowhere to be found. He picked up the phone when I called, sounding way too calm for my liking. I took the car. It's mine, remember? I'm giving it to Sarah so she can use it for the kids. I was stunned into silence for a moment. You're giving my car to Sarah? Are you serious right now? It's not your car, Emily. I paid for it, and she needs it more than you do, he said, his tone matter of fact. That's the last straw, Jake. You've taken everything from me, and I'm done, I said, my voice shaking with anger. What are you talking about? Don't be dramatic, Emily, he said, clearly not getting it. I stood there in the hallway holding my phone, unable to believe what was happening. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. How had things gotten so bad? I picked up the phone and called a moving company. Hi, I need a team to move some furniture and appliances today. It's urgent. The movers arrived a couple of hours later. I showed them around the house, pointing out the items to be moved. Take everything, the beds, sofas, chandeliers, even the faucets in the bathroom. The movers got to work, and soon the house started to look empty. I felt a strange sense of relief watching them carry out each piece of furniture. As the last item was loaded onto the truck, I directed them to my mom's house. Everything goes there. Thanks for the quick work, guys, I said, handing them a tip. With the house now bare, I grabbed my essentials and headed to my mom's place. A few hours later, my phone started buzzing. It was Jake, calling repeatedly. I ignored the calls, feeling a mixture of anxiety and empowerment. That evening, there was a loud knock on my mom's door. I opened it to find Jake standing there, looking furious. "What the hell, Emily? What did you do?" he shouted as he stormed into the living room. "I took my stuff, Jake. You took the car, so I took what I bought," I said, keeping my voice calm. "This is insane. You stripped the house bare. Where are Sarah and the kids supposed to sleep?" he yelled, his face red with anger. "That's your problem, Jake. You made this mess. Now you deal with it," I replied, crossing my arms. "You're a thief, Emily. You stole everything," he shouted, waving his arms around. "I didn't steal anything. Here are the receipts," I said, pulling out a folder and showing him the proof of purchase for all the furniture and appliances. He looked through the receipts, his anger shifting to frustration. "Fine, Emily. If this is how you want to play it, I'll file for divorce." I took a deep breath and handed him a stack of papers. "Already done. Here are the divorce papers. Sign them, and we're done." He stared at the papers, his face pale. "You're really serious about this, aren't you?" "Dead serious, Jake. I deserve better than this," I said, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. He took a pen from his pocket, signed the papers without another word, and handed them back to me. "Fine, Emily. Have it your way." I watched as he turned and walked out of my mom's house, the door slamming behind him. I stood there for a moment, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. It was over, and I knew it was the right decision. That night, I sat down with my mom and talked about everything that had happened. She was supportive and agreed that I had made the right choice. "Emily, you've been through a lot. It's time you focused on yourself and your happiness," she said, giving me a comforting hug. "Thanks, Mom. I just need some time to figure things out," I replied, feeling a weight lifted off my shoulders. Over the next few days, I started to settle into a new routine. I began organizing my new My name is Emily, and I'm 35 years old. I've been a homemaker for 10 years, married to my husband, a doctor named Michael. We haven't been blessed with children, but we've been living a reasonably happy life. However, something happened that put an end to our 10 years of marriage. "It happened one day, Emily, this is the end for us," said Michael, who came home late as usual. "What do you mean by the end? What are you suddenly talking about?" "I've decided to marry my mistress, so we're getting divorced today." "Marry your mistress? What are you talking about? I've made up my mind. I'm leaving you and marrying her. Besides, we didn't marry for love, so you probably don't care, right?" Indeed, ours wasn't a love marriage. Michael's parents were eager for him to marry and found me as a suitable partner. We hardly knew each other and got married quickly. The only thing we had in common was that we originally had the same last name. People might say it's fate that we have the same last name, I thought, attracted by the idea in the rush of surrounding marriages, and decided to marry him. Since then, we managed our wedding and married life well enough, but I never imagined we would divorce after 10 years. It wasn't a love marriage, but we've lived together for 10 years, and now you suddenly want to marry your mistress. When did you start betraying me? It's not betrayal. I met her about a year ago. She's a nurse who joined our hospital. She's charming, unlike you, always caring for me, and it's natural that I was drawn to her." "Natural? Are you serious?" "Yes, I've always been serious. These 10 years living with you have been true hell. I was honestly sick and tired of supporting such a boring woman, but that ends today." "How can you talk like that?" "It's the truth. You're a homemaker who produces nothing while she's an active nurse. Ask any man in the country, they'd all choose her over you. Do you think a high-flying doctor like me needs someone like you?" After a pause, I was the first to speak. "Fine, let's divorce." I never thought I'd be married to someone who could say such things so calmly. "We can discuss alimony and property division later with a lawyer. I'll sign the divorce papers and send them later. Until then, I'll go back to my parents' house." But then Michael interrupted. "No need for discussions. We don't even need a divorce paper." "What do you mean?" "We can't separate without it. If we don't divorce, you can't remarry." "You're so naive. It's pathetic. The truth is, I never submitted our marriage registration. We're not a married couple, just cohabitants. So there's no divorce, no alimony, no property division." That day, Michael was supposed to submit our marriage registration, but I couldn't go because of an urgent matter. But it turns out he never submitted it. "Not submitted? Wait, are you joking? We've been living as a married couple for 10 years. It's impossible that you didn't submit it." "Normally, yes. That's why I made that rule at the beginning. If you went to the office, everything would be ruined. When we got married, we made some rules. I, as a homemaker, would handle all the household chores. I was on an allowance, and part-time work was prohibited. And Michael would handle all governmental and official matters. Why would you do such a thing?" "Because I was about to be forced into a marriage with someone I didn't love. It's not like I was going to submit it easily. I was saving marriage for someone I was destined to be with. Then you should have refused the marriage proposal in the first place." "I couldn't refuse. My parents are stubborn and wouldn't listen. What would have happened if I said I didn't want to marry? Plus, I wanted a housekeeper. I'm a busy doctor and can't often tend to household chores, so I decided to marry you as a housekeeper. It was a good deal for you too, right? You could eat well and have a roof over your head without working. You seemed desperate to get married too. What, you were probably feeling pressured because your friends were getting married, right? Even though we weren't actually married, you were seen as the woman who married a doctor. This 10-year relationship was a win-win for both of us. That's all it was, and it ends today. You should be grateful for the good times you had. Now you have to live on your own without relying on others." "I can't believe this. Oh, and one more thing, don't tell my parents about this. If you do something unnecessary, you know what will happen to your father, right? My father, who runs a medical equipment sales company, has a contract with the hospital where he works. It was through my marriage to him that this connection was made. If I told my in-laws, he's implying that he'd sever the contract as a threat. In other words, he's threatening me not to do anything unnecessary. It's your fault for being deceived. How pitiful to be thrown out with nothing," he said, laughing. But the one who would be thrown out without knowing anything was actually him. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. What's so funny all of a sudden? "I can't believe you became a doctor with that kind of knowledge." "What do you mean?" "I knew all along about your mistress and that you didn't submit our marriage registration." "That's impossible." "That's why I've been preparing, waiting for the day you'd bring it up yourself, preparing to get my revenge on you. In fact, I had suspected his infidelity for the past 6 months, but I didn't have enough evidence to confront him, so I hired a private investigator to look into his affair. Ma'am, there are 2 things I need to tell you. The first is that your husband is indeed having an affair." We've got evidence of him entering a hotel with a nurse from his workplace. And the second is from their conversations. There's a possibility that you two are not legally married. Possibility of not being legally married. What does that mean? I overheard your husband and his mistress at a cafe. He said they didn't need to worry about alimony or property division since they never submitted a marriage registration. What? I can't believe it. We've been living as a married couple for 10 years. I don't know why he didn't submit the marriage registration. That's why he never let me handle any official procedures. Yeah, that seems to be the case. I can't believe this. How could this happen? It's rare to hear about not submitting a marriage registration for 10 years, but it's not unheard of. This is too much. Am I just supposed to accept this? If we were never married from the start, there's nothing I can do. Not necessarily. What do you mean? Let's make him pay for deceiving you for 10 years. First, we need to prepare without him noticing. And so I began to prepare with the investigator to punish my husband. So what if you knew we were never married from the start? So it doesn't matter what I do with other women. I don't need to take any responsibility, he said. I was pitiful for not knowing anything, but it seems you are the one who was pitiful. What do you mean? We're considered to be in a common law relationship on paper. So what, you might not know, but you can actually claim alimony and divide property in a common law relationship. What? He didn't know that registering as a de facto marriage would backfire on him. You can make claims in a common law relationship. It's not well known, but yes, you can. Of course there are some conditions, but looking at your case, it seems you meet them. What are these conditions? The common law relationship is established based on these two criteria. First, both parties must have the intention to marry. If it's just living together, that's cohabitation. Mutual intent to marry is key. That seems subjective and hard to judge. For instance, if you had a wedding ceremony or recognized as a couple by others, it can be acknowledged. We've had a wedding ceremony, and our parents and friends know us as a couple. Then the first criterion is met. The second is living as if married. This includes sharing household life for over 3 years. You've been living together as a couple for over 10 years. As a homemaker, you've obviously shared the household finances. This is recognized as a marital relationship. So that means if you can provide proof of what we discussed, you can claim alimony and divide property. I'm not an expert in this area, so I'll introduce you to a lawyer. You can work with them to bring him down. After consulting the lawyer I was referred to, I was told that I could indeed claim alimony and property division from my husband. So I'm going to demand alimony and property division from you. I informed my husband, who turned pale. His confidence, which had looked down on me just a moment ago, was gone. But even if you can claim alimony and property division, you're just an unemployed woman. Do you plan to rely on your parents after being kicked out? Didn't I say I was preparing? I've already found a job starting next month. I've also got my eye on a new place. Don't worry about me. What? He thought I, a clueless homemaker, would be helpless, but the tables had turned. Ail us, so I'll make sure to discuss this with your parents. Just so you know, do you not care what happens to your father? If they want to break the contract, let them. What, sure, you were the link to the hospital, but the contract continued because of my father and his company's efforts. Whether or not they keep the contract is up to them. Let's see if they'll break a contract just because the doctor's wife of 10 years was a lie. Try saying that, you. My father and I won't be affected if the contract is broken over this. It only shows the depth of their trust. We'll just find another hospital to partner with. Saying this, I took out my phone. You're not calling your parents, are you? That's exactly what I'm doing. Our parents think we're still married. It's only natural to inform them if this relationship is ending. Then, to my surprise, my husband began to apologize to me. Please let me talk to them. Don't call. Why? You know how strict my parents are. If they find out about this, I'm done. What does that have to do with me, huh? You're asking me not to tell the truth because your parents are strict. Are you kidding? You could have refused the marriage from the start if you didn't intend to marry. After 10 years of a selfish marriage, you're afraid of your parents finding out. I can't accept such a convenient story. But I can't accept your story. I'll make sure to tell both your parents and mine. And so I called both sets of parents. All four were shocked upon hearing my story. A meeting was promptly arranged at our house. I've heard everything over the phone. Is it true that you pretended to be married for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration? Speak up, you foolish son. It's true. I didn't submit it. Why would you do such a thing? Didn't you think about how Emily would feel? I had no choice. No choice, you say? How can you even say that? It's actually your fault, Dad and Mom. I didn't want to get married, yet you started looking for a bride on your own, saying it was time I got married. You arranged meetings and tried to force a marriage on me. You're the one who agreed to the marriage, aren't you? I had to agree. If I had refused, you would have made a fuss about it. So I decided to get married. If you were resolved to marry, why didn't you submit the marriage registration? I read about a man on the internet who was in the same situation. He didn't want to marry but had to because of his parents. He lived a married life without submitting the registration, then revealed the truth when he found someone he truly loved. That's appalling. And what happened to that guy in the end? He's now married to the person he loves and has a real marriage. So I too will marry my girlfriend and have a real marriage. Then my parents, who had been silent until now, spoke up. A real marriage, huh? Sure, you might not have had a love marriage, but do you remember what you said at the wedding? We will never forget to care for each other and build a home full of smiles. What did those words mean to you? What were we shown then? We sent our daughter to you hoping for her happiness, but you deceived her for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration. Did you build a home full of smiles? Now you're leaving her for another woman. Can someone who acts without a shred of care, even if they change partners, truly have a real marriage? Well, I was happy you married our daughter, not just because you were a doctor. I thought she could build a happy home with someone as sincere as you, but it seems we were mistaken and deceived. And you threatened our daughter. If she told us about this, you'd cut off the contract with our company. What? Seriously? If you're going to threaten our daughter, we'll cut off the contract ourselves. Be warned, we will tell the truth when asked why. If you do that, there'll be rumors at the hospital. Well, yes, but that's the result of your own actions. You were the one who threatened us with cutting off the contract. My husband was in complete panic at this unexpected turn of events. Please wait. This is getting out of hand. Let's just talk. At that moment, my father-in-law grabbed my husband by the collar. Furious, we didn't raise you to be such a scoundrel. What were you thinking? Father, please stop. By not submitting the marriage registration, you might have thought you were doing yourself a favor. But because of your selfish actions, Emily was strung along for 10 years. What were you thinking causing such trouble to others? The living room fell silent. My husband, faced with my father-in-law's words, had nothing more to say. Emily and your parents, I'm truly sorry for the trouble caused by this idiot. No, your parents shouldn't apologize. It's not your fault. However, it's partly our responsibility as parents for letting him act this way. For now, we'll take him home and make sure he doesn't continue his reckless behavior. We'll deal with the aftermath properly. We're very sorry for all this." And with that, my husband was taken away by his parents back to his childhood home. "You've been through a lot. For now, you should come back home and rest. We'll think about what to do next later. You don't need to worry about anything right now." My parents thought I was completely exhausted and deceived. They spoke to me with such kindness. "Thank you, but I won't go back home yet. I still have things I need to do." I declined their offer and stayed in my own home. What I had to do was prepare for the final settlement with my now ex-husband. Gathering evidence for our common-law relationship, I was getting ready to claim alimony and divide our assets. A few weeks later, a meeting with a lawyer was arranged. However, even if I agreed to alimony, why should I divide my property? She's been a homemaker for 10 years, never working a day. All the furniture, clothes, food, I paid for everything. Now you're telling me to hand over the money I worked hard for, the furniture I bought. He rented, unable to accept that his money would be shared with me. Yes, that's correct. The money you earned and the furniture are subject to property division. Why does it have to be like that? Who did the housework while you were working? Who cooked meals with the groceries you bought? That's irrelevant now. No, it's very relevant. A homemaker is entitled to property division because housework and childcare have economic value. Speaking as a human, not just a lawyer, do you think housework is something anyone can do? That it's just expected of a homemaker. The reason you could live freely is because of her support. Don't get that wrong. And this situation is a result of your actions, yet you have the audacity to be selfish. What did you say? Never mind anyway. She's entitled to half of the assets for property division. That's how it is. Damn, regarding alimony, we intend to claim $100,000 from you. $100,000? Why so much for a relationship that wasn't even a marriage? It's precisely because you weren't married. Normally, alimony claims in common-law relationships range from $10,000 to $40,000. However, in your case, you pretended to be married for 10 years and selfishly tried to kick her out when you found someone else. The amount is determined by the severity and duration of your actions. But still, you may think 10 years is just a short time, but it's longer than you realize. During that time, she devoted herself to you, believing you were a married couple. You have no right to complain after betraying her. A perfect rebuttal. He couldn't say anything and reluctantly agreed to my demands. Then I also sent a notice of claim for alimony to his mistress. I knew who and where she was thanks to the investigator. As he had said, she was a nurse working at the same hospital. The mistress, having heard from him that there was no possibility of alimony or property division, must have been utterly shocked by the contents of the claim. Wait a minute. This isn't what you told me. What do you want? I told you not to talk to me at the hospital. I got this from your wife. You said there wouldn't be any alimony because we weren't married. What's this all about? I later learned that in a panic after being served with the alimony claim from me, she confronted him at the hospital with the notice I had sent. Okay, let's talk about this later. Not here. There are too many people around. We'll both be in trouble if this turns into a rumor. I don't care about that. I can't pay this kind of alimony. You said it was okay, so you should pay. Pay it for me. What? I won't pay a penny. You were the one who wanted this relationship. You said I was the only one for you, that you wanted to marry me. Hey, quiet down. Everyone can hear us. Just so you know, I'm not in the wrong here. If you want to make amends with your wife, do it yourself. Tell her I don't owe her a penny, that you'll take care of everything. This exchange led to the revelation of their affair to the entire hospital. It quickly became the talk of the place. And then the final blow was my father's request to the hospital. I apologize, but we would like to terminate our contract at the end of next month. Then the hospital, aware of the rumors, asked my father, "Excuse me for asking, but is the reason for canceling the contract related to Dr. Michael's affair?" It's already become a rumor. Yes, a nurse presumed to be involved caused quite a scene. I never imagined he had been pretending to be married for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration. I never expected it to turn out like this. You mean he never submitted the registration? Weren't you aware that he hadn't submitted the marriage registration? All we knew was that he, being married, had an affair. What do you mean he didn't submit the marriage registration? With my father's request, it was revealed that he had been deceiving me for 10 years by not submitting the marriage registration. This news spread among the other nurses. Dr. Michael deceived his wife for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration, and he had an affair with a nurse. How low? How could he do that? Can someone really not notice for 10 years? Apparently, Emily's maiden name was the same, and he managed all the official paperwork. That's scary. The rumor spread not only among hospital staff, but also to patients. And both Michael and his mistress received cold stares. Unable to endure, they soon resigned from the hospital. As my father told me, "Did you manage to get the alimony?" Yes, I received payments from both him and his mistress. She refused to pay until the end, claiming she was deceived. But the lawyer made it clear her argument wouldn't hold, and she reluctantly agreed to pay. That's good. What about you, Dad? Did the contract get canceled after all? No, that's off the table. He resigned, and since our company is trusted, the hospital asked us not to cancel the contract. We couldn't cancel it after they asked like that. That's a relief. Then I started a new life in a new place and was living happily. About a year and a half later, my ex-husband contacted me. "Is it true you got remarried?" I had married a man I met at work, and somehow he had found out. I wondered whose number this was, going through the trouble of changing your number just to contact me. Just answer my question. Yes, I got married. You betrayed me. Betray? We were never legally married, so I didn't think it would matter to you. Right? That's a different matter, indeed. Things are different now. We're completely separated, so my marriage has nothing to do with you. Is that why you contacted me? After I said this, he seemed at a loss for words. Then he taunted, "Of course, you're still unmarried, since you probably haven't submitted a marriage registration. You're that kind of woman." But things weren't as he imagined. Unfortunately for you, my husband isn't the kind of person to do such terrible things. He knows all about your story. So to ensure I wouldn't feel anxious, we went to the office together to submit the registration. Sadly for you, things aren't as you thought. I can somewhat understand your wish for me to be unhappy, considering your own misery. But sorry, we're happily married. I told him this and hung up the phone. What kind of life he leads now, I don't know. But unless he changes his selfish nature, it's unlikely he'll ever find happiness.